So welcome for those who are just joining in right now. And our session today is going to be focusing on the project cycle. I'm stepping in. I'm called Simon Marotolong. I'm stepping in for my colleague Foni, who is having an internet connectivity issues. So I'll be the MC now. We did an info session last week for all the 3 languages: in English on Monday, on Tuesday in French, and on Wednesday in Spanish. So GRYN shared a call for proposal on the 6th of August last week. That's on a Friday. And in our call proposal, we're asking young people to actually send in applications for projects to be funded. Funding will be from 500 to 5,000 US dollars. And so the purpose of today's workshop is to actually talk about the application process, how you can actually apply, how you can design your project. And the second one is also to let you know on how to support you on how you can actually do a project design, how you can actually do a project assessment and design your project to actually suit your own community. So our agenda today is first will be a welcome introduction that we are doing right now. Thank you for actually introducing yourself on the chat. And the second thing will be an overview of a project cycle. What is entailing a project cycle? And then the first step, the first 2 steps are the one we're going to be focusing on. That is assessment of your community, and then project design. And then we shall go to completing the Global Refugees Network project funding application, which we shared with you last week. And then also explaining your ideas in a project document. So there are document templates that we shared with you on the budget template and also a project document that we shared with you last week during the corporate proposal. So we're also going to support you on how you can actually fill and complete the application, explaining each step at a time. And then lastly, we shall have a case study for the division group, a youth group that is based in Chaka, whose member is also like part of the GRYN member here. Next. So what is GRYN? I think for those who have actually who attended the info session last week, you already have an idea of who GRYN is. But for those who never attended the 3 info session in English on Monday, for French and then Spanish, so GRYN is an independent youth-led organization that supports young refugees to develop their capacity, to empower themselves and help each other, to lead initiatives, to respond to their community needs and advocate locally, nationally, regionally, and globally for change they feel are important. So we feel that there are change that you young people, that the youth actually feel are very important in their own community. And that's why GRYN is here coming to actually empower you. We're not coming to implement the projects in your areas, but we're coming to empower you so that you can lead these projects locally. You can also lead them nationally where you are based or where you're hosted, or the regions where you are staying in, and also have it actually shared globally. Next. So this is the brief picture of our GRYN team. This is the team for GRYN. This is basically for people who never attended the info session. I think for people who attended the info session last week, these members actually introduced themselves. But for the benefit of those who never attended last week, this is the team that you can actually reach out to and to actually support you in case you have anything that you actually need. So the first on the left is me. This is me, Simon Marotolong. I'm original from South Sudan, currently based in Uganda. And I'm an advocacy and the networking coordinator for GRYN. The second person following me is Laura. Laura Valencia is from Colombia, but now she's based in Ecuador. She's our communication coordinator, and anything to do with communication. If you have any issues, maybe with your social media, you have any issues to, if you are contacting us using our social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, Laura will be the first person to actually respond to you. In case there is anything, maybe you want your work to also be amplified, you want someone to actually support you, you want your work to be also featured on our page, you can contact Laura to actually be the focal person to actually put your item online. The third person is Farida. Farida was originally from Congo. She stayed in Chaka to refugee settlement, but currently he has resettled to Stockholm. So he's now based in Stockholm, Sweden. She's our gender and diversity coordinator. The fourth person is Ibrahim. Ibrahim is original from the Central African Republic, but currently is based in Morocco. Ibrahim is our networking coordinator and capacity networking and capacity building coordinator. And the fifth person is Fonny Joyce, who is having actually a connectivity problem. He's going to join us shortly. So Fonny is our coordinator, is the coordinator for GRYN. In case there's anything to do with partnership, there's anything to do with how you can actually engage more with GRYN. So you can contact our team leader. He's the team leader and our coordinator. Fonny Joyce is original from South Sudan, but currently he's based in Nairobi, Kenya. Lastly is our mentor and our supporter, who is hosted at the Women Refugee Commission, Kate Mahon. Kate he's not a young person, but he's a youth at heart because he has been doing a lot of work on young people. He has been empowering young people. He has been building the capacity of young people and also like supporting this team. So she works with the Women Refugee Commission and she's a focal person for youth engagement at the Women Refugee Commission. So this is the team that is actually putting out GRYN. And in case you have any issues, you can contact me, you can contact Laura, contact Fonny, contact Ibrahim, or contact Farida. Next. So just as I said before, like last week on the 6th of August, we shared a call for proposal, our first cycle of call for proposal for young people to actually apply for funding. So if you are a youth-led organization that is led by young people between the age of 15 to the age of 30, and you work to solve a problem or a challenge in your community, you can apply for this funding. So the first GRYN funding is to help refugee youth program led projects like in 2021. So the program of our goal this year is to support youth initiatives or your initiative and your activity through a grant for innovative and agile projects. So the goal is to help youth leaders strengthen their work by providing financial assistance, by capacity building, and advocacy. So we're not just giving you the money and then you go and implement your projects there. We're giving you the money and also with some other package, like the training that we're doing today, and some other series of training that are going to be coming in before the end of this year. So during the implementation of this project, we'll also support you with how you can actually do your advocacy work, how you can actually build the capacity of your team, of the work that you do on ground, and also like give you the financial assistance. So you can apply for between 500 or 5,000 US dollars for a project. So the call for proposal is online. It's now open until the 31st of this month. And then those who are successful will actually be contacted by the 30th of September. And then projects will actually be implemented before the end of this year, the 31st of December 2021. Next. So GRYN has got an application form and a project template. So the first thing that you do is to go to the online. There's a link that's also shared, and Laura, my colleague, has actually shared it right now on the chat. For those who have not actually had an opportunity to actually get it before, you can get it on the chat here. So it's on the chat. You first go to the application form, where you actually fill there are questions there that you fill different stages. Information about your group. You also have information about the project that you actually want to share with us. You give us the details, and lastly, a section on your experiences, whether you have done a project before or you have not done a project before. So that when you complete it, you can actually edit it before the end of 31st of this month of August. So you have like up to 2 weeks to edit your application. You can go back and see if there's something that maybe you have not put the problem statement well, you have not put maybe the activities well, or you have not arranged your outcomes very well, the results, then you can actually go back and edit. But after the 31st of August, you will not be able to edit again. You will not have an opportunity to actually edit again. So after the call for the application, there is a project template. So this project template is a format that can help you organize your idea. So you don't have to submit it, but if you can actually fill it and actually fill the different areas, you can actually send it to us. But it is not a compulsory step that you can actually fill with this. So we need to submit a budget that explain the estimated cost of the activities and also like your planned activities. So the different activities that you plan to implement, there is a template that we have to share with you. So you can actually use that template, or you can just list down the activities and then the estimated cost per activity, put it in a paper and take a very clear picture that will help us determine whether your project is actually worth the call, or we can actually maybe discuss more with you. Next. So for today's call, we're going to be focusing on the project cycle, just like I said before. So the project cycle has got like 4 different stages. As you can see on the screen here, different organizations, different initiatives, different community-based organizations, different user-led organizations, established organizations have different ways of actually handling a project cycle. So designing and managing a project has steps. So different organizations have these ways of explaining the different steps, but there are all basically 4 of them. So the first step is the assessment. So the assessment is to analyze and understand the context, the problems, the vulnerabilities in the community that you're actually working in. And then the second step is the project design. So here you're outlining the solutions or the aim of your project, your planning activities, and then being clear on the expected results. What is this result that you also want to see in your community? If there is a problem, what do you really want to put in place to actually help it change? And how does the change look like? That is the expected results. Then the third step is the implementation. So implementing an activity or monitoring or tracking the progress of your implementation is very crucial. And it's the third step of a project cycle. And then the fourth one is reporting. So here it involves reviewing how your implementation went, documenting learning from the experiences, and the reporting on the lesson that you have learned and the expenditure to your donors and also to the community that you are actually accountable to. For instance, if you are working in a refugee camp or in Kakuma, let me say. So if you're working in Kakuma, you're working with the community that, let's say, the youth groups in Kakuma. So you have to account to the youth group how much you have actually got, how did you actually spend the money, and how did money actually impact their community, their well-being. Then you also like account to the donors. For instance, if you succeed from Kakuma and we are your donors, you also account to us and say, you know what, these are the activities that we propose to you, and this is how much it actually went. This is how much we have spent, and this is how much we've actually achieved. That is accountability, both the people who are actually a beneficiary and the people that actually supported you, who are benefactors. But today, because this can be actually done in a week, this is like a week or even a 4 days or a 5 days project or training or a workshop. Today, we're going to focus on 2 things. Just the first 2 steps. First is the assessment. The second one is project design. So next. So with the project design and project assessment, which we're going to focus today, I will handle the first part, which is the assessment of a project. So assessment is very, very important. It's the first step, and it's very important because without an assessment, you cannot even know what your community needs are. You will not know what problems you actually need to measure in or you need to actually focus in. So assessment can be termed like a community consultation, or it can be called a community consultation or community networking or a community mobilization. So you are assessing, you want to converse, you want to talk to the community. So the purpose of assessment is to analyze and understand the community. What specific problems or problems are there, and which problems you will focus on, and the vulnerabilities of the communities. Because there are so many problems there. You will not use only one funding source to actually assess or to actually solve everything. But there will be at least one problem that you're also focusing on. So once you have that clear understanding of what your community is, so you will describe the community context and explain a specific problem in a project application. So to show funders that you understand the problems, and so that they can understand what you are proposing and why it is important and impactful. Because there are so many problems that your community must be facing. But if you are telling the people like Green, which are not actually going to be funding you, you need to tell them that this is the problem and this is how it's impacting people. And if we actually solve it this way, this is what it's going to actually change. So an assessment is also important because it informs what activities you plan and how you plan to implement them. So the activities that you plan should be appropriate for the community to solve the problem and respond to vulnerabilities with a sensitivity to different ages, gender, aspect of diversity, like ethnic or disability. Your community is not uniform. It's not the same age. It's not the same gender. It's not the same ethnic. So there are so many different ethnic. So if you don't explain clearly in your project, in the assessment, if you don't really have an understanding of your community, then you will not know which group you actually need to focus with, or the group that you need to include, and how you can actually include the different genders. So we're going to learn about some tools that you can use with your groups, whether through this application cycle or maybe in your future project or in your future applications. So these three tools are not the only tool that you can use for assessment of a project or a community consultation. No, there are many other tools. Like you can do a case study research, you can do a piece-wise, you can do also like a community research in your own community there. You can do a focus group discussion. There are different tools that you can use to understand your community. But today, we're going to focus on this first, on these three. One is community mapping. And then the second one is problem tree analysis. Then the last one, which is the third one we're going to focus on today, is vulnerability assessment. So before I go to these three tools that will help you, next. Before I go to these three tools, we'll also like to hear from you, because I've been speaking and we've just been welcoming you. I want to ask you to actually type on the chat. So we want to also hear from you. We know many of you have experiences with designing projects before, implementing activities before, designing and implementing projects. You have been successful in this. So can you share with us a positive experience or a lesson that you have learned while you've actually not implementing or designing a project in the past? It can be the current project you're designing, or it can be like a past project that you actually designed. The second question is going to be, do you have questions for us or the rest of the group in terms of maybe project design or your expectation for today? So I will give you like 1 to 2 minutes to use the chat to actually tell me an experience, a positive experience, or a lesson that you learned while designing a project, before we go to the three tools that we're going to focus on today. Opira Bosco, you have a minute to unmute yourself and tell us what you have.
Yes, greeting to everyone. In particularly, my experience on project design, I've never designed a project before, but I've also learned from school how a project is designed. But according to how I see the templates of the GRYN, I see like the problem statement and the backgrounds of the originality of the problems. Like, for example, before we write for a project, we do underground assessment to analyze the current situation, right from the national level or even from the global level to the specific areas that, concern affecting the community. So if I see the format of the GRYN, the templates for the GRYN, how do we put this part of the literary review of the background of the issues that affect our community right from the national level?
Okay, thank you so much, Opira, for that question. It's noted down. There is a part that is actually going to tackle that later on in the call. So Jeremiah, you have 1 minute before we can continue.
Yeah, good morning from my end. Really, I'm Jeremiah Sekou Kamara, speaking from Ban Refugee Camp, Liberia, West Africa. I have a project. I have been working with many people. A lot of people already also have an organization on my own that I'm controlling. I'm the CEO, Executive Director. In project designing, I have worked with even UNHCR have even helped me in implementing my project by training the young refugee students that are opening a computer school. But if you are talking about project designing now, what am I trying to say? In project design, there are many things that we people need to outline, because the beneficiaries, who are the beneficiaries that we are going to meet, and then how these beneficiaries get to get the knowledge that you are sharing to them, because many people are willing to learn and some are not willing to learn. So in this, you have to talk with them to get the idea whether you have an organization on your own that is establishing, that you'll be able to pass in the knowledge to other people. Because when you don't have the organization, it will be very difficult to implement the project, because you will become the first person to that. It would be your first experience. So my question here is, if you don't have an organization, would it be possible for this application, for you to send this application to the institute for this particular job that we are applying for?
Thank you so much, Jeremiah, for that question. So for the current call of a proposal from Green, we're not really focusing on individuals. But if you are a group and you have a group that you are working with, that you design the project together, you can actually share it with us, whether you are registered or you are not registered. Because for an organization, I think you're meaning someone that is legally registered, that is having all the certificate and having all the details from the government that is hosting them already. But for us, we're looking at groups that are actually organized. Even if you are registered or you're not registered, you can submit for this call for proposal. So thank you so much. Let me continue. I've seen Lundo. Lundo, you have raised your hand, but I'll get back to you later after maybe going through the community mapping. Thank you. But you can also use like the chat to tell us your experience or what lessons you have to learn while designing a project. Just like what Mohammed Ali has just shared. That you must really understand the problem, the root causes, and the possible solutions for it. And you should also consult with the stakeholders or the actors in your community that will help you understand and have the ability to easily implement it in later stages. Yes, because all these actors are all working together. They are all working together to actually make sure that your project is a success. So we'll go to the 3 tools. Next. We'll go to the 3 tools, and the first tool is the community mapping. So with the community mapping, you're looking at, you probably might be knowing your community. So your job now is just to pull together the information that you already have about your community. You fill in the gaps, and then you describe your community so that other people can actually understand the situation in your community. Because someone who is staying in Ecuador and someone who is staying in Kakuma, they are really different. They don't have the same experiences. They don't have the same community. So their goals are also different and their needs are also different. So the first tool, which is community mapping, is just a way to talk through the questions as a group. So it can also help you to draw a map of the community to show where the different groups live, where services are actually located. And it also helps you to describe your community, the type of community that you're actually working in. Is it a rural or a remote village or an area that is accessible? Is it an urban setting? Because we have urban refugees who are living in Nairobi, there are refugees who are living in Kampala, there are refugees who are living in Cairo, there are refugees who are living in Stockholm. So are they urban refugees or they are refugees in the refugee camp, like, or a settlement, a refugee settlement in Uganda, or the refugee camps in Kenya? So that tells us more about your community. So also the population in your community. What is the population of your community? How many people live in your community? And who are they? Because you can have a camp with over 200,000 people. Yeah, but are they only refugees in that camp? Are they only refugees or they are also host communities? Because there are camps and settlements that are shared between host communities and the refugees. For instance, in Chiredongo, when there was a flooding in a place called Bududa here in Uganda. So the host community were also displaced because they had nowhere to live in. They had to take them and they were staying with the refugees in the refugee camp, in the refugee settlement called Chiradongo. So that is also like, it tells us more about your community. And also the project that you're going to design, is it going to only focus on the refugees, or it's going to focus on the different communities that are staying in your area? So are these people from the same country, or they are from different ethnic groups, or they are from different countries? So roughly, how many men, or how many women, how many youth, how many children, or older people are in your community? You need to clearly state that. You need to also document all these details. It's also important and helpful to gather information and then share the information that is most relevant. Because there are a lot of information outside there. You can get statistics from UN, from the implementing partners of UNHCR. but which one is more relevant to your specific topic? Because if you are just describing about your community, the spaces that are given in your call for proposal might not be enough. So you need to actually have a portion of the community that you are going to be focusing on, whether it's a large portion, which is the young people, or maybe there is a important piece of information that you want to share, very unique information about the strength or the weakness of your community that you want to share and you want to focus on. You need to put that clearly out in your community mapping. So, and then the other thing is, what are the general challenges or the strength of your community? What's the level of poverty? Is there good or poor internet connectivity? We all know refugees in the settlements don't really have so much connectivity, but those who are in urban centers have got actually some good connectivity. But it's also not all those who are in urban centers that have connectivity. There are those who are in the suburbs, those who are in the remote parts of the urban centers, where there is too much congestion, where there are no clear structures there. They also have issues with connectivity. Is there potable water? How is it accessible to jobs or the market? How about the schools? Is it easy for you to actually access a good health center? Are they located close to your community? So these are the things that you also need to actually put out in your community mapping. So, and there are also like conflicts in your community, or there is a good cooperation among the different ethnic groups, among the different religious groups, or among the different tribes. Even the communities, like the refugee communities and the host communities, are they really having tensions? Are they having good cooperation? Do they work together? You need to actually put that out in your community map. And then lastly, you also discuss all the questions that you have actually put there, the type of your community, what the challenge they have, the population number. If there are 1,000, if there are 100,000, if there are 50,000 people there, you need to actually state that. And then you will have actually a draft after you have pointed out all these points and you get the important points and note them down. You then have a draft a community distribution of your community, which we're actually going to be doing right now in like 1 minute. I want at least every one of you not to raise your hand this time around and speak, but to just use the chat and type in just 1 or 2 sentences about your community. Maybe you can tell us about your community. I live in this community. We are this number of people, and they're only refugees, or they're mostly women. They are mostly young people of this age. Just use the chat to describe for us your community. Or you can also write it down in your book or your template that you're actually using right now for this training. You can just write down, what is the community like? What is your community? So describe in a sentence something that explains where it is located, how many people are there, and who they are, what is it like to live there. And then you note the strengths and the challenges of your community. You have 1 minute to do that in the chat right now. Do we have an idea of how our community is looking like? Maybe you can tell us how many people are in your community. You can say 100,000, you can say 50,000, 10,000, or 1,000 people. Okay, maybe because of time, let's go to the second tool that you can actually use.
Hello.
Yes, hello?
Yeah. I just want to give a brief explanation about my community in Liberia. I'm from West Africa, Liberia, Ivorian refugee residing in Ban refugee camp. Ban refugee camp is located in Nimba County, and it's it have been in existence in 2000 to present. We started with about 4,000 refugees, but now because of the VOREP, there are about 1,500 refugees, settlers in Ban refugee camp, and other part of Ban. We have other part of other refugees in other part of Ban surrounding that are living in the host communities that don't want to come in the refugee camp, and they have another camp in PTP that also is being controlled by UNHCR, one recognized refugee camp also. But I'm mainly talking about the location that I am. Ban refugee camp is a big camp that accommodates more than 2,000 refugees, but now the number of actual people that are in Ban refugee camp are about 1,000, and people are wanting to get knowledge. We have many youth that want to go to school, but because of finance support and other things, they involve themselves into drugs abuse, early marriages, and other of you that you can think because they are not educated. But once this project is given for them to do vocational training, vocational skill training like carpentry, tailoring, soap making, and other things, they will be able to start their life and to live a good life. So I would not be able to now to draft a community mapping for you now, for example. I can do it in my proposal if there is a space for me to provide that, do a sketch for you people to see it also.
Okay, thank you, Jeremiah. I think, thank you so much. Let's go to the second tool. People, I've seen your hands. I will come back to you. Let's go to the second tool. Next, Laura. So the second tool is the problem tree analysis. I think Jeremiah also like touch a bit about the problem that actually they are facing in their community and how young people are actually engaging in drugs abuse in their community. So the problem tree is a way to analyze a specific problem to better understand how to tackle it. So it is good to do this as a group and actually draw a tree. So the steps are, the first step is what challenges do actually youth, maybe let's say refugee youth or a specific group in your community face? What are the problems that they face? Maybe women or girls in your community, what do they face? You list the challenges down. Then the second step is to pick one challenge that you want to focus on analyzing. So you define the problem statement in a straightforward way. For example, the refugee youth do not have access to quality education. If among the challenges that you listed like above or the top, if access to quality education is a challenge or a problem in your community, then you now put it in a problem statement and say refugee youth do not have access to quality education. If it is health, you can say youth do not actually have access to good health in my community. And then the third step, using the problem tree analysis, is that you discuss the causes that lead to the problem. So you write this on a post-it note, or you also put them on the roots of the tree, because they are called the root causes. So they are on the roots of the tree. If you can see on the picture above, so we have like the orange and the green notes, which are on the leaves of the tree, and we have like the pink notes, which are on the roots of the tree. So those are the causes of the problem that the group actually discussed about. So after discussing the problem that led, for example, if it's lack of safety and security, if it's earlier child marriages, if it's pregnancy, if it is language barrier that is making young people not to access school, if it is poverty because they cannot afford school fees or they cannot even buy scholastic materials, or it is cultural beliefs and discrimination in the schools or difficulty with documentation that they don't have IDs that they can actually use to register in the school, you list them down on the roots of the tree. And then the fourth step is to discuss the impact of the issue on the lives of the refugee youth. If your problem that you have identified is specifically tackling the refugee youth, so you write also this on the notes and see these are the impacts. These are the impacts of the problem. For example, high rate or the high use of alcohol and drugs in the community, high earlier child marriages, there is high dropout in the schools, there is high crime rate, earlier pregnancy, ignorance, idleness, low self-esteem, lack of jobs, there is poverty, there is sexual abuse. These are all the impacts of the problem that you have to identify. When people don't go to school, when children don't go to school, when youth don't go to school, they are also vulnerable to gender-based violence, and sexual exploitation in the community. So you put this as the impacts of the water problem, and they are on the leaves. You can see on the branches and leaves of the tree. So lastly, you now take the step, which is look at your tree and reflect on it. You analyze what you have done. What is it that we have done? And then you discuss what you learned about the problem and its causes and the impact. You discuss this is the problem in my community, and it is caused by this, and then the impacts are here. In just like one sentence, you can capture a lot of things using the problem tree, which is a tool that actually people are using so much. So many good people actually use it to draft their projects. So you then formulate a problem statement that explain in one or two sentences the problem, its causes, and the impacts on the refugee youth and others in your community. So if your community is lack of access to documentation, you let us know what are the causes of the lack of access to documentation and what are the impact in one or two statements. So you write it down. We'll have like time later on to explain and actually share it also on the chat. You can share it on the chat. One statement that explain, one or two statements that actually explain the problem in your community, what its causes are, and what are the impacts on the community that you're actually serving. Because I've seen now, I can see like people saying we are LGBTI community and sex workers, refugees, both in Kampala, Uganda, and in the camps. There are about 300 people. So what are some of the problems that you actually face with your community people? What are some of the problems that you guys face? Put that one in one or two sentences and actually share with us here. As we go to the next tool, because we're actually running against time. Laura, can you go to the next? So the last tool that we're going to be looking at today is the vulnerability assessment. So the purpose of a vulnerability assessment is to take some time to think about how some people in our community actually face additional problems or specific challenges due to their age, due to their gender, due to their aspect of diversity, like someone with disability, someone with a different sexual orientation, someone who's a LGBTQI member, someone who is from a different ethnic group, someone who is a child mother, someone who is at risk or a survivor of gender-based violence. These people have different vulnerabilities. They are vulnerable to different things. They have also different challenges. They also like the same challenge that we face. Theirs might be like 4 times. They might be like 3 times. For instance, if there is a problem with accessing documentation, for you to even go to the office is a challenge. But when you're also in the office, accessing the office is also another challenge for someone who is having actually a disability, someone who is also having or who does not know how to speak the language. So these are the things that you capture when you are assessing the vulnerability assessment in your community. So these additional challenges can make it harder for them to cope or even make it harder for them to access services or feel included. They may face discriminations or violations of their rights. They may also need certain types of activities to help them in your different projects. So how could we then reach out to those people who have actually additional vulnerabilities? We have to reach out to them. We have to actually seek them out and speak to them. We should not wait for them to actually come to our centers. We should not wait for them to come to our offices. We should not wait for them to come to our conferences. We seek out to actually look for them wherever they are living in. We also think about the different groups in terms of the group ages, the differences in the ages, differences in gender, the different aspect of diversity and vulnerability. If we don't think about these things, then we will not be able to actually include these people in our projects. We also make sure that we make a list of individuals and groups that work with them. There are people who are focusing on persons with disabilities. There are people who are working with people with different sexual orientation. There are people who are working with the children. There are people, the partners who are working with women. So we need to actually list them and then see how we actually support and actually have these people represented in our project. So when you speak to them, you will get to understand the people who support them, who represent them, and how they can actually be represented. Then you also need to look at how do you learn about their specific needs, because by looking just at someone with different sexual orientation, you will not really know what they actually go through. You will not know their experiences. You will not know what their perspectives are, what their needs are. If you just assume, then you will be missing a lot. But if you ask them, if you talk to them, if you learn from them about what their needs are, what is important to them, how they want to actually be engaged, then you let them speak for themselves. You let them speak their challenges, their needs, and their ideas for solution. Because these people have the solution. They have all the ideas that we really want for us to have them supported. But when we don't speak to them, when we don't engage them, then that is a problem that is actually likely to happen, and they are going to be excluded. How can we actually design an inclusive project activities that are accessible to those who are more vulnerable? How do we actually involve them? You make sure that you involve them in the design. If you're going to have a football match, if you're going to be having football matches, how are you going to include persons with disabilities in those football matches? Are you just going to say, oh, they cannot run in the game and we just leave them? Or you can actually say, you know what? Someone can be the referee for our basketball game. Someone can be the technical team manager or the team doctor for a football team. That is how you actually include them. But you can only include them when you actually involve them in the project design, because they will bring you the idea and say, you know what? Me, I'm very strong in this way. I should be able to actually help you guys and actually be part of you here. And then how can we help people turn their vulnerabilities into strength? You actually make sure that you support them take action. You support them to use their skills and their talents. You also involve them. You give them the space to share their stories, their ideas, their recommendations, and their talent. Because when someone is not recognized, when their talents are not recognized, even if they are very strong like what, they will not be able to open up. They will just keep quiet. So documents, so now we have come to the end of the third tool, which is the vulnerability assessment that you can use for your community consultation or your community assessment. So now you
We just have a brief technical difficulty, but I'm sure Simon will be able to reconnect in a minute. Thanks for your patience.
I hope I'm back and everyone can hear me clearly, as Simon is trying to sort out his connectivity. I'll just do a quick recap on what he was able to share in terms of the step one, when we're step one, which is the assessment. Everything you've learned from the community mapping, the problem tree analysis, and the vulnerability assessment will really help you to formulate the problem statement and the project aim. So what you have just learned is the different steps or the different tools that can help you to really clearly explain what the problem is, and also to clearly explain what is the aim of the project you are developing. And maybe as you share different questions in the chat, we want to really just do a quick case study with Farida. I know you've all met Farida. So Farida is part of a refugee youth group, which she's founded. And we're just gonna hear from her based on what we've learned from the community mapping, from the problem tree analysis, and the vulnerability assessment. How have they been able to go about this? So Farida, welcome. I'll just ask you the first questions. Could you share with the team what are the characteristics of Chaka-2 settlement where you were based before?
Yeah, thank you, Foni. Characteristics of Chaka-2. Chaka-2 is a rural area, and it's a remote area far from the main roads and the nearby town. 100,000 refugees, bigger than the nearest host community population. In the different areas, there are protection houses for people with disabilities or elder people and others like single mothers who are in critical situation. In Chaka-2, there are 150 churches and 4 mosques for Muslims. There are many refugee youth groups, but mainly the refugee groups, the leaders are men. Girls and women are not participating so much. And the offices of NGOs are very far from many of the zones where people live. Public transport is limited, mainly borders or motorcycle taxis. So it's hard for people to move around. Thank you.
Thank you, Farida, for sharing the characteristics of your community. Moving on to the second question. When you did the problem tree analysis, what came to your attention as a major thing that needs to be looked into in your community?
The major problem is child marriage in a Chakatu refugee settlement, and the root cause is poverty and unemployment in families. The head of families doesn't work. That is the root cause of all the other problems. They can't manage to support their children, and unaccompanied girls see marriage or prostitution as the way to support themselves. It is because parents cannot support to buy books, sanitary pads, and shoes. The impact is terrible. There's a lot of gender-based violence. Often when these girls marry at a young age, they marry a drunkard who is an older guy. Girls who get married and pregnant at a young age often have a lot of complications. And those girls feel uncomfortable. They don't feel like they fit in the community. They don't fit in with the girls, and they don't fit in with the women. They often drop out of school.
Thank you, Farida. Really great insight as well on what you were able to learn from that. So also going to the third tool that we've also just talked about, what did you learn from the vulnerability assessment when you conducted it with your project?
Youth who are living with disability don't get chances. At schools, they have no access to toilets, and even in classes, or there are stairs. This means they don't get the chance to attend school or trainings. Often they are not invited. It is important to reach them at their homes to help them to be engaged so they can share their challenges and their special needs. When you come to LGBTQI, they hide themselves. In Uganda, they are not accepting them, so they cannot ask to reach any organization. In a refugee community, that is the same thing. They have protection issues. They can't get documents. They face harassment, so they keep changing places because they don't feel secure. Thank you, Fanny.
Application, this is something that you can also use. You can use it to when you're writing, when you're sending in your application. This is a tool that would help you to highlight the needs of your community, conduct a problem analysis, and then also use the same step to briefly explain the community and the problem you want to address. I've seen a couple of comments in the chat. You don't have to provide the exact numbers. You can provide an estimate, which will really be helpful for us to also kind of like have an understanding of the community you're living in, what is entailed in this particular community. Next slide on the project cycle. If just going back to the project cycle slide, remember when Simon was beginning, he mentioned that there are different steps when we're looking at the project cycle. Step one, we completed step one, which is the assessment, and now we're heading to step two, which is the project design. So really looking at when we're talking about the project design, so what are some of the expected results and also the aim that you hope to achieve? So this is something that you would be looking at when you look at the project cycle. You start with the assessment, then you get to the next step, which is now fleshing out what you've been able to do, which is the project design. To start with the project, when we're looking at the project design, there are a couple of important things that you need to look at. The first one being the project aim. So you need to really define and explain what you're trying to do overall. So what are you trying to address? What is the problem? What is the root causes? Your project may not solve that particular problem, but your aim should really describe how this project will be a step in making sure that you're able to at least solve that particular challenge you're facing in your community. Then you also need to think through the project activities. Think through actions actions you and your group want to take to try and achieve a move to the aim. So for example, we're talking about, sorry. It's also really important to look at the expected results. So think through and be clear on what impact you're trying to make by implementing these activities. This is the expected results. So implementing activities may not fully achieve the aim, but they should be able to achieve the expected results. So which will be, you won't be able to achieve all of them at once. You'll be able to take them one step at a time, and it will get you to the aim that you're hoping to do. So when we're looking at step 2, as you think through the activities, the expected results, and the aims, use what you have learned through the assessment. So you have to go back to step 1 and think through, this is my community. This is the nature of my community. And then look at the other aspects, the problem analysis. What is the problem my community is facing? Once you're clear and you understand what the challenge your community is facing, then you'll be able to also look at how can we incorporate the other people in the vulnerable people in the community. So everything that you have learned through the mapping, analyzing the root causes, talking about the impacts of the problem, assessing the vulnerabilities, will then help you to access how do I design a project that addresses this particular problem. If it's issues on young girls dropping out of school, once you've already analyzed this, then it will also help you to look at this is the problem and this is the activities we need to take to ensure that the girls do not drop out of school. If it's access for persons with disability, what steps do you need to take so that all the different people in the community can be able to have access to the different services in the community? And with step 2, one of the tools, there are many tools, just as Simon had mentioned. Next slide. There are many tools that you can use to help you in looking through the different activities or coming up with the different solutions that you want to implement. But one of the tools we will be talking through today is the storyboarding. So storyboarding is basically a tool that will help you to work through, it will help you to look at what is the aim of this project? What is the results we hope to achieve? And it also helps you to really clarify and explain what support do you need from maybe the team or even from other people who are not part of the team. And to start us off, if you can see on the screen, there are a couple of instructions that would really be important when you're coming up with this particular solution to follow, so that you're able to really have a clear mind, have a clear ideas on what you need to do. So one of the things that is normally very helpful is that you would need to start with a blank sheet of paper, and because you've already gone through step 1, which is the assessment, you have a clear idea on what the problem is. So at the top of the paper, you would write your problem statement. So this is basically just what challenge are you facing? So your challenge can be about youth out of school or girls out of schools. They are young out of school girls are idle and not able to provide for provide for themselves. So this is one example. So if you look at the screen right now, we have a template showing how the storyboarding you would create would look like. So when we're talking about writing the name at the top, you write the problem statement at the top. So if it's youth are not able to get job opportunities, that's your problem. This is what you're trying to solve. Then after you've done this, you divide your paper into 4 parts. The first part, number 1, is on solutions. So this would be looking at what solutions are you proposing? If many young people are not able to have access to jobs, what is the solution you're providing? So this particular section or this particular box will help you to formulate the aim. What is the aim of the project that you want to do? Then the second box, which is what can refugee youth do? What you are trying to do overall to address the problem and its root causes. So this next box will help you to identify what is your role or what is the role of young refugees in solving this particular problem. So the solution that you provide or the role that the different people have should be aligned to, should be in response to the problem statement that you have highlighted. And then the box 3, what support do we need and from whom? So this particular box will also help you to really look at what support do we need? Is it funding support? Is it capacity building support? It helps you to really be clear on what sort of support you need to be able to solve that particular problem. And then the last box, which is box 4, will be looking at the positive impact. So these are the expected results. If you're able to, if this is the solution and these are the people who can work on the solution and this is the support that we get, then this is the results that we will have. Results such as young people will now be able to work, young people will now be able to provide for themselves. They'll be able to do quite a lot of things for their community. So if you look at the right side of the screen right now, you'll see that there's a quick storyboarding template that we did with a couple of different young people, and they were able to share this with us. So the problem statement that they identified was that young out-of-school girls are idle and not able to provide for their families. So what needs to happen? That is their problem statement. They went further ahead and said, there needs to be livelihood skills, opportunities where they can learn different skills, whether it's baking or even just tailoring. So they identified that the solution that they really need is to have life skills training. And then they went to this box 2, which was on what is the role of youth or who is involved. So they identified that youth can sit together and plan together. So if the solution is to have a life skills, a livelihood training, and to get to that particular training, they identified that young people can come together and sit down and discuss, this is what we think would really work. And then they came to box 3 and talked about where we're asking, what support do you need and from whom do you need the support? And they identified that the support they need to collaborate with other young groups or even collaborate with other organizations in the community. And then the results after identifying the problem, after identifying that this is the solution, after identifying that this is what I can do as a young refugee, or this is what we can do as young refugees together, and this is the support we would need, then the impact would be that many young girls would continue to save money. They would have their self-esteem would be boosted up, and then they would also have self-reliance. They wouldn't have to depend on anyone to sort out particular problems for them. So as this particular solution or this particular tool really works best if you're able to draw rather than just writing those words. Because if you write the words, you can write it, but then you're not able to see the picture, how it fits, how it all fits in. Because drawing uses different parts of our brains, and it helps us to become more creative and to think outside the box and to just really look at if I'm saying that we need trainings and I draw people attending a training, maybe I will see that I need to have someone who will be facilitating. I need to have someone who will be maybe interpreting if there's a need for interpretation. I need to see that. I need to see the whole picture so that I'm clear what is the role of everyone. And for this particular exercise, you don't have to be a really good drawer. You can just stick figures and just draw them and see if I'm talking about solutions. Box 1, would you propose, what solution would you propose for this particular problem you've highlighted? So draw that particular solution, and then this will help you when it comes back to the aim. You'll be much more clearer on this is the aim of the project we are proposing. And then the different roles that you have or the communities have, draw this as well, because then you'll be able to draw and see if I want to ensure that girls stay in school. I know that I need to work with young refugees to continue speaking about these issues, but then I'll also see that I need to work with maybe different community organizations who would help me to achieve that particular solution. So when you draw that, you're able to see who is missing in the picture, and then it will help you really to just, it will also help you to see the activities that you need to do, because you know, if I need young people, then we need to organize for meetings. If we have organizations that are working for girls, then we also need to reach out to them. So probably organizing meetings or even doing advocacy efforts with them, so that it makes it very clear for you to determine what activities do you need to do. And then when it comes to the part 4, which is what support do you also need, it's also really good to draw, because then when you draw, if the challenge is girls are not in school, the solution is to continue advocating on that. Activities that we need to do is organize meetings, conduct conferences. Then whose support do we need? So when you come to that particular section, you'll see that if it's in a refugee settlement that needs authorization, you'll indicate that we need to go to the offices to ask for support in regards to, let's say, giving us permission to conduct meetings. Or if it's funding, for example, with the green funding, we need to go back to them and ask them for funding to ensure that if we organize these particular meetings, that we can support, we can facilitate the young girls coming to the location where the trainings would be happening. And then when you go to the last box, which is on the solutions and the impact, you can also draw these particular solutions, because then when you draw them, you will be able to see if the challenge is that many girls were not in school, then many girls will go to school. Then what? If they go to school, what is the result? Do they become self-reliant? Do they have more skills to be able to do things for them? So the storyboarding aspect is also really important, and will support you to think through all those different areas, and provide really concrete areas on things that you can focus on. Next slide. So with step 1, with the step 1 on the assessment, and then with the step 2 on the project design, this will really help you to define and explain what you're trying to do overall to address the problem. So when you go into the application form, the green application form, this will help you to also kind of look at, it will help you to describe how this project will be a step in the right direction. And the aim that you share for this particular question in the application form should be about 1 to 2 sentences. So for example, if the aim is to prevent, for example, the statement can read, prevent child marriage and support young mothers to be financially self-sufficient so that they can support themselves and their families by helping girls to stay in school and gain the skills. So this is something that if you go through the process, stage 1 and then step 2, it will help you to really flesh out and be clear on what you're trying to do. Next slide. When you come to the form again, we also have, on the form, we have a question which is asking on what activities will you implement to achieve the expected results? So the expected result is you want to see that girls are able to stay in school, become financially sufficient, and they're able to also help their communities. So use what you came up with from the storyboarding tool. Remember when you were drawing and identifying, we need girls to be in school, because if they're in school, this will help them to do this, it will help them to do this. And how do we do this? We do this by maybe conducting meetings, by conducting trainings. So that particular storyboarding will help you to further develop your activities. So think through what actions you and your group want to do and try to work towards that particular aim. But it's also really important to understand that you can list as many activities as possible, but then your project activities might not fully reach the aim, but they should help to move things in the right direction. It's not, you won't wake up one day, for example, and see things have changed rapidly. The steps that you take in making the change will lead you to accomplishing that particular project aim. So as you think through the activities, next slide, please. Also make sure to use what you've learned through the assessment, the community mapping, the problem analysis, as well as the vulnerability assessment, and be sure that you make these activities accessible to the different people. We've learned from Farida and also from Simon's presentation that it's really very important as we develop our projects. Are we including all the people who are not necessarily easy to see? Yeah. Are we thinking about people who are very vulnerable, or are we only thinking about the immediate challenge we're facing? As Farida always says, as refugees, there are very many vulnerabilities that people face. So you might find yourself, you're a refugee, but then there's also another layer of being a refugee. You another layer of vulnerability. You might be a child marriage victim. You might be a survivor of GBV. You might be someone who is disabled, and sometimes it's very hard to see all these layers of vulnerability if we don't open our eyes wide enough and conduct this particular assessment. So it's really important to do this assessment, which will help you to understand how will you implement the activities in a way that promotes maybe the advancement of girls and women in your community, and also supports gender equality. Yeah, really important to look through. How will your project reach more marginalized youth or even other vulnerable people in the community? How will you make sure that within that particular project proposal or project you want to share in the application, or even in future for other application, are you opening your eyes wide enough to see the needs of others in the community? And it's also really important, next slide, as you think through all these particular steps, it's also really important to think about how will you implement your activities? Because it's one thing to say, this is the problem, this is the activities, this is the solution, this is who we'll work with, this is the budget we need. It's also really important to be clear on the work plan or the timeline. How will you implement these activities? You can, so within the GRYN project, what we've also done, we've incorporated a project template, and really this particular project template, which you will encounter, it's kind of like helping you to see the bigger picture activities, and then to schedule time for all the different activities you want to do. And also, as you schedule the time, it's also keeping you in check and telling you, you said you want to do this by this time, and this is the outcome that you're expecting to see, and this is how much it would cost. So this is also something that most projects always have, that a work plan that describes the activities as well as what is needed. So step one, if you're gonna be using this particular template, you need to note down your main activities. And for each activity that you're thinking about, you need to estimate the work plan or even the time. If you say, for example, what we mean by time is we want to have these particular matches, one match per week between the period of November to December. So you would need to describe that. When will you do each activity? So you need to be as specific as possible. You also need, you may need to also have a detailed action plan of who in your team will do what and when they'll do the planned activities. because you're submitting the proposal and you're working on this proposal with your team, it's also really good to ensure that everyone on your team is aware of what they need to do. So within the work plan, outlining the roles of each person is also really important. And we just need to see an overview when you're applying for this particular, the call for proposal. We just need to see an overview of what you will do, so that we feel confident that you have thought through it and it makes sense. Because these particular tools will help you to look through, this is what I want to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is how my team would be involved, and this is how we're going to do it. So for example, if it's 6 football matches, 1 week during 1 per week during October to November, it's really good to be clear on identifying, this is what we've said we're going to do. And during these particular football matches, so for example, Phony can be the one who is organizing the snacks. Simon would be the person who is maybe working with it, that they're able. I think someone is unmuted. Kindly mute yourself so that we could everyone can be clear on what we're saying. So that everyone, just taking it back, the work plan really helps to identify the roles of every single person in the team. It's always important that as you're doing this, you work with everyone in your team. And then the step 3, as you're filling this particular, the outcomes, what happens if you implement this activity? Yeah. Is it done? If you plan 6 football matches and organize them, one of the output is that you would see that you organize the matches, you brought young people together, and maybe that helped them to exercise, have fun. But then this doesn't speak to the impact of the activities. It just says that you did what you said you were going to do. So it's really important to be clear on the outcome. What outcome do you want to see? And then in step 4, for each activity, we also need to see a list of the expense in the local currency, so that we're clear on if it's Ugandan shillings, if it's Malawian shillings. I don't know how they call their currency. Really being clear on, this is the amount that it would cost in the local currency. So if you look at the screen right now, we've just shared a quick work plan showing activity 1. And then under the activity 1, shared an example, what people want to do. And then under the dates, so the timeline, between what time to what time. This is making clear that we know we want to have 1 football match per week. And this is for 6 weeks between the period of October and November. And then the results that we're hoping to see is that young people can play football and get healthy, and they can get exercise. That's 1. And then we're also hoping to see that young people meet new people from other communities and they interact. Or it can also mean we want to create social cohesion or understanding between the refugee youth and the host community youth. So you see, the outcome is quite clear. And then when you come to the budget, which is also really important, you break it down. How much would this particular activity cost? You include that particular cost and you share it on, make sure that everyone is aware that there's this, if it's 6 football matches, this is how much it would cost. What do you need? You need to include that. And then on the application as well, we ask you to estimate each activity with as much detail as possible. We want to make sure that, it's on the next slide, please. We want to make sure that you provide as much as possible information so that the person who is reviewing the application is able to have an understanding of what you're doing. And this is normally a requirement for most projects, that you provide so much detail, not so much details, but so much details so that the person who is looking through it is able to see, yes, I know what they're saying. I understand where they're going. I get what they're saying. I can see the estimates clearly. Next slide. And when you've outlined this in a very clear way, then it also means that the person is able to make a good decision, and they're able to share the results with you based on what you've shared. So you always want to make sure that with any project proposal or funding you're applying for, you provide as much detail as possible so that anyone who is reviewing it is able to make the final decision. Next slide. And within that particular the particular slides as well, if you go into the application form, we've asked you to share the local currency as well as the currency, the converted currency. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because the call for proposal that we have put out is a worldwide call. We'll get applications from Uganda, applications from Ecuador, applications from different parts of the world. And if different parts of the world are sharing the different local currency, judging it or looking over it may become very crazy. So it's also really important that you convert the local currency into dollars so we can make a good judgment of this is the local currency, this is how much it would cost in the local currency, and this is how much it would cost in dollars. So within the application, within the documents that we've shared in the call for application, we've also shared a link to this particular site, which is a currency converter, and it will help you to convert the currency into US dollars. So what within this particular link, you'll see that the different boxes, the currency you have, and then the currency you want. So for instance, you can come to the currency you have and click, if it's Uganda, you can, for example, click Uganda. And then what do you want? You want to convert it into dollars. Then if you've said the total cost of an activity would be 300,000 Ugandan shillings, then you come and include that particular amount within that box, and then it will convert it for you to dollars. And then you can take this and incorporate it into the budget template that you would be using. And it's also really important to note that this particular site is updated every single day. So on the day that you share your budget, or the day you submit your call for proposal, it's good to go back into the site and do the conversion, and then make sure that you've already shared it with the rest of the team. Next slide. It's also, before getting to the risk, one other thing that I needed to also mention is that within the call for proposal as well, we've shared a budget template. And in this budget template, it's accessible in Google Sheets or in Excel. You can download the sheet, and once you download it, it will help you to automatically calculate everything. It has formulas that will help you as a lot of budgeting, like transport, food, snacks, compensation, all facilitation fee for people who will be coming to the you use a phone, it's not, you may not be able to use it, but then if you download it on a computer and fill it out, it will automatically calculate it for you. One other thing we also want to mention is that we are here to support. In case you get stuck with the templates, you can reach out and send emails. The Green team will be able to support you. And it's not really a requirement to use the project work plan template and the budget template. You can simply just submit a budget template, or the budget template that is handwritten, and you can share that with us, but it also has to really be clear. We want to make sure that you understand the concept or the tools or documents that different people use when they're doing call for proposals or even applying for different funding. So we highly encourage you to use this particular template, but it's not also a requirement. If you need support, you can reach out to the Green leadership, and we can see how we can support you with this particular application. Next slide. As you're also thinking about your problems, the problem statement, the solution, as you're thinking about the impact and the different people who would be involved, it's also really important to be frank with yourself and ask yourself, what are some of the risks involved in doing some of these activities? So if it's on the activities, what are some of the risks? What are you foreseeing? So for example, if you're organizing a football match, that's an activity that you want to do. We know that we're in a period of Corona. That's a risk, right? So you also need to include that particular risk in your plans. This is the risk that we foresee even before doing the activity. If it's the work plan, what are some of the risks? We've said, for example, I want to have 6 football matches between October and November, but what are some of the risks? What are the challenges that would affect that particular timeline? So you also need to include that in your work plan. And then the budget as well. What are some of the risks you would see? Is the budget enough? Are you sure that it would last you? So these are some of the risks that you also need to really be clear on. Next slide. So in the call for proposal, we've also incorporated this particular question, asking you to share the potential risks that you see that may affect how you achieve the project you're suggesting. And then we just don't want you to stop at, this is the challenge we will face and this is what we will do. We also want you to go a step further and think about, if this is a challenge that we are gonna and we would face, how can we mitigate the risk? How can we solve this particular challenge? So also really being in that space of, after analyzing a problem, we just don't get stuck at this is the problem, but also thinking about creative ways to make sure that we're able to solve that particular challenge. As you take all this particular in, I'm gonna pause for a while, and we're gonna also hear from Farida again on different aspects of how she was able to use these particular tools, so that you can also understand how to use these tools in your projects or in the works that you do. And to start us off, I would like to just ask Farida a few questions. This is the case study that we're doing. We will get to the question in the chat, and we will promise to answer all the different questions that you've shared. I think there are quite a lot of interesting comments and questions you've shared. Farida, I would like to welcome you to this particular section. Could you tell us about how you developed your project AIM using step 2?
Thank you so much, Fonny. After we talk to child mothers and we understand their needs, our aim is to help them to gain skills so they can earn income and be self-sufficient.
Thank you, Farida, for really just clearly putting out what your aim is. And maybe could you tell, what about the activities in your work plan? How did you come up with this?
I work with my team to come up with a short-term and long-term activities. We write it all down, what we are going to do in 1 month, over 2 months, or long-term activities that we need to work towards for 1 year. As an example, a short-term activity might be teaching a group of child mothers how to make soap. It is a 1-day training session. A person on the team will identify the participants, for example, a group of 20 child mothers, and then plan what chemicals we need for 20 people to make soap. We make a project schedule, who will do what and when. The expected result is for them to learn to make soap, for them to sell, but also to keep themselves, their children, and their houses clean. And this makes them feel good about themselves. Then we think we should add more activities. Do we add sanitary pads to help them maintain their hygiene? Then they can be a role model to other child mothers. Training on tailoring or hairdressing is longer term. We need to organize training sessions over 8 months or 1 year. And we cannot stop there. Some child mothers want to go back to school. We have to go to the school to talk to them and help them out.
Thank you, Farida, for sharing that and highlighting that some projects would be some activities or the work plan is short term, others are also long term. So this is also something that is quite good for all of you to take into account as you develop your work plans. Going to the third question, Farida, what about risks? What risks did you face and how have you dealt with some of these risks?
When we are doing our budget or our proposals, project proposals, we discuss risks. The big risk is about the budget. Everyone writes to us saying that they want to learn, but there is not a lot of money to buy materials. If we go beyond our budget, we are at risk. It is not good, and it is better to always keep some money. Another big risk is expectations. Sometimes what we provide is not what they are expecting. They are expecting a lot, but we have little. And or give them time and transport and help with facilitation to help them keep them moving. Thank you, Fanny.
A really great example, Farida, that you've shared on what you have done and some of the key lessons you've learned in developing your project and working on it. So what we've done today, basically, we've just gone through step one, understanding what is entailed in step one, and then which is the community mapping, the problem analysis through the problem tree, and also looking at the vulnerability assessment. And then we've gone to step two, which is also really looking at how do we make sure we're clear on the aims that we hope to achieve, how do we make sure that we're clear on the expected results, as well as the activities that that would get us to that to the expected results, as well as the aim. So really being very intentional and looking through all these different processes to help you, not only for this particular funding that GRYN is putting out, but also in the future as you apply for other opportunities, going through this particular step to help you analyze, to help you develop those particular solutions. Thank you so much for listening in on the workshop in itself and the case study that Farida has shared. We're now going to get to a session of question and answer, and I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague Simon, who will take us through this particular session, and we will be answering some of the questions that you've come up with, or points that you wanted to clarify, or things that were not clear. Thank you once again. Simon, over to you.
Thank you so much, Fonny. And thank you also to all of you for listening attentively, for also engaging and sending in your community details, your challenges that you're facing, and all your experiences. So this is now time for us to actually interact, to also hear from you. If you have any question, please put up your hand, and then we actually have a discussion. Maybe I will start with Dibe and Lundo, because they raised their hand before. Yeah, Lundo. Lundo, please, the floor is yours. Unmute and then ask your question.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I was raising hand for the first time just to contribute, but I've really appreciated this session. It's my first time to participate on it, and I've really appreciated the contribution from different people. I see it will really assist us, me and my group, also to apply to others' opportunity. But for the moment, I would like to ask really a question from what I've understood. I have a question. For example, we decide to design a project which will fight maybe malnutrition, and we found out, for example, we do our assessment and we found that the problem is malnutrition, and we say, okay, to solve this malnutrition, if we can start the poultry project so that we can produce eggs, something like that. Okay, I hope maybe some members of the group would not have that knowledge how to raise those chickens. So we might need someone to come to train us. In the budget, when we are now asking for the funds in this budget, you have also to write that we will need training. For example, we need training for these days, and maybe this training will take us this money, something like that. So in the budget, there is possibility for us to write something like that in the budget. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lundo. That is a very good and innovative project. Yes, like when you have like hiring a consultant, getting someone to come and train you, a trainer from somewhere, you will actually maybe need number of days that the person is going to be training you. maybe 5 or 10 days. So you need to tell us how many days the trainer is going to take and how much you are even going to pay the consultant. So the fee for the consultant or the trainer has to be there. If it is one of you guys that actually has the knowledge and you want to share with other people, you have to capture it there and say, you know what, we're getting a consultant and this is the cost of a consultant. He's going to stay with us for 5 days or 6 days so that we actually know when we're assessing your project. So you need to put that in your budget. Thank you. Rebecca, can you unmute and speak?
Yes, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, we can hear you, Rebecca.
You're
Go on
hearing
with the
me?
question. Yes.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, my question is that, like, I've seen those questions that you're saying that you're going to answer when you're sending your proposal. Are we going to send, are we going to answer the questions, or we are going to send a proposal format, kind of a document, or we're only going to send we're only going to answer those specific questions and that's all? That's my question. I wanted to know about that.
Thank you. So the questions are the first step. And within those questions, there are questions that will ask you about the project template or the project document. And then those are the questions that will ask you about your budget. So if you have a computer and you have like good connectivity, you can download those documents. If you understand them, you can use the templates that we provided to you. But it is not a must for you to actually submit them. If you can write clearly, whether you take a picture of your budget and explain different activities and how much they are going to cost, you send them to us so that we understand how much the cost of your proposed project is. And then you don't need to actually send the budget template or the project document. But when you are able to feel and you are able to understand, you can send that to us because it will ease our work to while selecting the projects. Funny, if there is anything also you need to add, you can actually jump in and unmute. Katira, Amin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so my question is that I have read all those steps which are written in GRYN. I am living in Karachi, Pakistan as a refugee, Afghan refugee. Well, there has not been any kind of NGO or project recently in Karachi to help the refugees, our community, and hardly there are any NGOs which are working for the health and education in Karachi. So our project consists of these 5 to 10 people who are from refugee community, and we are trying to we were actually having this project since a long time, but due to financial strain we could not make it out. So my question is, can we submit our proposal as we are not an established NGO or we have not worked before this? Will our project be accepted on this basis?
Yes,
Thank
I mean, thank you so much for raising that. So for us, we're not restricting this funding to only registered organizations or the organizations that actually have experiences before or that have handled projects before. So we're asking for projects from registered and non-registered groups. As long as you're in a group, you have designed your project together in a group, you can send them to us and then we'll assess them based on your proposed activity, your proposed budget, and what you want to actually do. The level of innovativeness in your project and the impact that it's going to create in your community. So we'll use that to actually assess the project. We will not use the registration or the non-registration of the organization to determine your fate.
Simon, maybe just
Yes.
to also add another point. I hope you can hear me clearly. We're also, if you look at the call for proposal, one other thing that we've also asked is, are you working in collaboration with another group to submit a particular project? So this can also be something that as you look through, the project you want to submit? Do you? Sorry, am I back?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. So partnership, are you keen on partnering or collaborating with another group? So look at the collaboration, the storyboarding piece itself. And then the other thing, I think there was a question in the chat that was also asked is, are we looking at only particular projects? So no, we're not looking at only particular projects. We want to have a very good balance in terms of thematic areas. So it can be projects on SGBV, combating SGBV. It can be projects on sports, projects on different sorts of areas. And then we will make sure that we have a balance to see that different people are also able to benefit from the fund that Green has just.
Nepal, you've asked a question on the chat that does one require to have raised their own funds? I think no. We don't really. If you have raised fund to actually support your projects, it's also okay and it's welcome, because our project or our call for or our funding sources might not solve all the problems that you have in your community. But for this specific call, we really don't need you to actually have raised your own fund in order for us to support you. But we really encourage the partnership. If there is a way you can partner with other group, you can partner with the other NGOs and also like raise fund from them, it's much welcome. But it's not a condition for this application. Bosco, you asked what is the maximum number of target or the groups that Green is going to support. So we would like to support as many as we can, depending on the different regions, different countries, and different groups that are actually going to submit. So it will depend on the groups that have submitted and how much they are actually asking, that will actually determine the number of projects that we will support. But we really want to support as many as possible. And yes, we'll give consideration to specific communities, specific representation of the different regions and countries that are represented, different thematic areas, and also like projects that actually have that element of gender and diversity. And then there is a question on restriction. We are not going to restrict it, just like Fonny has said it. So I'm going to give the floor again to Bashir Ibrahim. Bashir Ibrahim, unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, thank you, sir, for giving this chance. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I would like to ask question for how many projects
sorry, Ibrahim,
the kinds of the projects you will address. I think this maximum and the kind of.
May you write your question? May you write your question on the chat, because I'm not able to actually get it very clearly. Write it on the chat, and then I'll give the chance to Mikaya Waja, and then Ladu, Dibe, and then Sihad in that order. Mikaya, unmute. Hello, Mikaya. Are you there? Okay, maybe Ladu from Sawahaf. Can you ask your question?
Okay, thanks everyone for the session. Yeah, this is Tombek, a call for Ladu. We are together here. Our question is, like, if our project is just to empower the community with the power, internet, and maybe some few gadgets, whether it is tablets or computers. So in the activities, those are the resources we are going to use for the community to access internet or to do their research. Are we going to cost them per activity? Because when we are done with the procurement of like the power system, and then the internet or the tablets is going to run from the start of the project until the end. So how are you going to put them per activity is what I'm trying to look at. That's our question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ladu. Fonen, do you want to answer that?
Put out.
Okay, so
Sorry,
Ladu,
Simon.
okay, so Ladu.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Could you repeat the question? Because I think I missed part of it. It was cutting off from my end.
Okay, the question is, we looking at providing internet and then power for the community. So like if we have procured the power system, we have procured the computers or the tablets, we have already put data into our routers or switches. So how are we going to account for these, like the requirements? Okay, the requirements we have for the activities monthly, like we are going to repeat using the computers or the tablets, and then the data, which is also just be running from the beginning of the project to the end. So are we going to put the budget per activity, or we are going to put the budget just lump sum as we are finished with our procurement? So we'll be looking at now how the activity is running. That's our question. I hope
Yeah, that was quite clear. It's really important when you're writing your budget, you put it per activity, because as I mentioned, you want the person who is reading your proposal or the budget itself to understand your thought process on how you want to use that particular amount of money. So being very clear, if you have activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, write it down, write all the costings that would be included. If you already procured whatever you need, it's also really important to think through, we already have this, but we still need to do this. What activities do we need to do to make sure that if we already had this particular establishment already running, we need to make sure that if it's monthly, if it's the subscription to the internet or purchasing of data, including that. And then once the different organizations that are successfully selected, we'll still also work with them to also highlight and share with them what do they need to do to ensure that when you're sharing this particular report or even the budget for yourself, but also in terms of accountability, what do you need to look at? So really just making sure when you're submitting your proposal, include as much information as possible, and then that will help to determine how to move forward to the next step, and really just be clear on what you're asking for as well.
Tombe, like from the activity, maybe you are saying you are buying computers, like maybe the activity is to provide, let's say, provide internet to my community in Rhino Camp. So that's like the activity. So what are the specific things that you're going to be doing there? So you'll need a space. So the space will run from maybe the start of the project, which is in October, up to December. So you list like it's per month, and it's going to be 3 months. So there you're telling us that you're going to be spending this money. Every month it's going to be costing you this to actually rent the space. And it's going to be for this month. And then the internet is you're going to be paying this per router. And then this is the number of routers that you'll be having. And it's going to run for this month. So that's what the information we want to actually see from your application. Bibe, the floor you guys unmute and then speak to us.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope everybody is get me.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
okay,
we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Simon and the team and all the members present now. So my question is, I've learned on the date, the starting date of the project, but I've not got where is the last day that we expect that maybe by this time to this time, the project should have been implemented, because for example, if maybe earning like for tailoring like that for the members, because now tailoring, it has some specific time, because in the monitoring and because of giving the funders the report, because at least for time will it take some month, then you can access, yes, now I have the report that maybe this number of beneficiaries have been trained and that have benefited. So I wanted to know the specific, maybe the timeline, that maybe like the starting time we expect by this month, at least the report is being given back. Thank you.
Thank you, BP, for that question. So the call for proposal are often up to the 31st of this month. So by 30th of September, successful applicants or people that are selected would have already actually got the status of their projects. So by October, all the projects should have started. And by the 31st of December, we feel that at least all the projects should actually be reporting back. They should, the people that are successful should be reporting back to us. They should have actually ended their projects. But there are also like some other circumstances that maybe a project might not be ended on the 31st of December. There we shall actually discuss with the team leader and see possibilities of actually pushing for like few days or a day or maybe a week or 2 weeks before actually the final reporting. So the timeline is by 31st of December, we'd like to want to see all the projects actually implemented. Siad Galaxy J6, unmute and speak.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Muhammad Osman. I'm based at the Dab refugee camp. I would like to ask a few questions regarding on project. So I want to ask
Siad, may you type your question?
The target group, the project team. Are you considering when it comes to are you getting me? Hello.
Siad, maybe you type the question.
Oh, so my voice is breaking.
Yes. Now, okay, now it's clear. You can go on.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm asking when it comes to the project funding, are you funding a specific particular project? Are you accepting proposals on a particular project or any project as long as a refugee funded as a refugee youth organization? Youth organization.
Okay, thank you.
What if I have a partnership with a local NGO from the host community? How does that affect me?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Siad, for the question. So we're not only funding specific project or particular proposals. We have different thematic areas that we're considering. We're considering projects that are dealing with child protection, peace building, women and girls empowerment, youth empowerment, different thematic areas. So we really don't have a restriction on the kind of proposal we're going to be funding. And in case of partnership, we also don't restrict the kind of partnership that you're going to actually apply with. So there's a question that is going to explain to us the kind of partnership that you have. So there is a question of whether you have a partner. If it is a yes, and then you tell us about the partnership. What is the partner doing? Who are they? Where are they based? And how are you going to relate with them? So you just tell us that in the proposal, and then we'll be able to actually assess your project.
And if my final question, please. Are you funding the organization directly, or this maybe you give and then that party will give us the fund, or you are directly funding us?
So we're funding directly the group that is applying. We're not going to give the money through other partners or a third party. We're going to be funding you guys. We're going to be working with you directly, the team that is proposing the project. And you will get more information.
Thank
you. Yeah, I also get more information. Thank you. Perfect. I also just wanted to add one more point. So if you're partnering with a particular organization, you'll find that in the actual application form, we do ask you to specify who you're partnering with, and then who is the team lead that you have both agreed on, because then this will help the funding process to be much more easier, and which we can also discuss when we get to the final stage where funds are being transmitted to the projects that have been selected. So if you're providing details in the application form, please provide as much information as possible and be very clear. If you're partnering or making a collaboration, who is the team lead, and how do you propose to move forward? And also, in the interest of time, we'll take maybe one more question, Simon, and then we move on to the next item.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take a question from Paola. Maybe we'll take the three. Like if you can just do it in 1 minute, Paola, Mushongole, and then you, Peter. Like 3 minutes, 1 minute per each. Paola, unmute and speak.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be representing the Vision Group, and I'm ready to train my community where we have connection problems. My question is, could it be possible to use one account to help different youth and adolescents to apply for calls, proposal using same account or phones? Because we don't have access to computer which are connected, not collaborating, but to help each other with connection problem. Apply.
Sorry, Laura, you're breaking. Paola, I mean.
I was asking, my question is, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. The question you're asking is about if one account can be used for sending different proposals, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And can
Yes,
also adopt Girls Club, sanitation and hygiene clubs at school, and also poetry reading clubs apply?
Yes. So as long as you're a club, as long as you're a group, you're an association, and you have a project that you have developed together, please apply for this call for proposal. And then you can also use one account as long as the projects are different, like the different projects, different groups are actually applying using the same account, but it has to explain that this is a different group, this is the group, this is the group, explain different problems. That way we can actually take it. Mushongole, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Simon, and all the team of GRYN for this floor. I'm Shongole Mkanuzi, the Young African Refugee Years Network, Yaren, Founder Executive Director. I don't know if someone is talking, if I'm allowed to keep on.
You continue talking.
Good. I have just two questions. The first is, it's about the budget, because we have seen many youth groups here have been undergoing the situation of not really getting support due to one point, which is always still a problem that I want to get some clarification from, is the local contribution. Sometimes we get some kind of these opportunities, and we found that the groups are required to also show the local contribution. What is the processes about this point also to the GRYN for such kind of project like local contribution? Will the Global Refugee Youth Network found 100% of the project proposal, or it needs also some of the contribution, like local contribution from the implementing organization, as in percents? Because I've been seeing some could ask 10%, other 20%. So I want to get something information about this. The second one is, can one organization submit 2 projects, or one group submit 2 projects? Thank you. I'm done speaking.
So I will start with the second one. No, unfortunately, we are not allowing one group to submit 2 projects. So one group, one project. So the second question is on whether we're asking for 10% or 20% or 30% for a project. No, we're not asking for that. And we're not also asking for that contribution from your group. I think we also answered that before. So you just apply, tell us this is how much it's going to cost, and then this is how much the different activities are going to cost. Then you should be able to actually review your project. Lastly, I'm going to take the final call, final question from Ayub Peter Kings. Ayub, unmute.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Ayok Peter Kings Ayok. I'm a Cameroonian refugee living in Adagom Refugee Settlement, found in Ogoja, Cross River State of Nigeria. I'm also a DAFI student, and I'm the president of Help the Less Privileged Association, an association of refugees that is made up of over 400 members here in Adagom Refugee Settlement. And I'm also a professional barber. I've partnered with Mediatrix in charge of livelihood to train refugees in barbing, and I've also partnered with Kuso International. Kuso International is also another NGO in charge of livelihood here in the Cross River State of Nigeria. And presently, I'm a volunteer working with Kuso International. So this is actually a very good opportunity for us to solve some of our problems. Now, we have so many problems. Now, before I even dive into the problems, I just want to ask a question. Now that there is a kind of limited amount, that is $5,000, and with the numerous refugees we have here, and with the problems ranging from livelihood and other problems, but I think the main problem here is the livelihood, because most of us here, most of the refugees depends on the CBI, that's a cash-based intervention. And as I speak, it has been like 4 months and nothing has been given. And some people are starving, hunger. I know because of the fact that, it's just a limited number of people that have been empowered, that have been given a livelihood opportunity. And we have, so in fact, I'm not sure the total population that have been empowered is even up to 10% of the total refugees here in Ogoja, to be precise. I don't even want to talk about Cross River State at large. Now, this our association made up of more than 400 refugees, and with if the amount is, I want to ask if the amount for this project, is it limited to 5,000? And if yes, if it is limited to 5,000, is it going to be a kind of continuous funding? Like, for instance, if a project is funded for this year, and since it is not everybody that will benefit actually because of the large population, so is it going to be some kind of like another funding, like maybe for the next coming years, for those who have not been who have not benefited from the funding of this year? So that's the question I'm trying to ask. And is it limited to the $5,000?
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So the question is whether we have a limited, yes, the maximum amount you can apply for is 5,000. The minimum is $500. And we know that there are so many problems in the communities that we're actually coming from, because they all come from the refugee background. So the aim of this call is not that you will solve all the problems that you have at once. You can focus on one specific problem that you want to actually use this funding for. So you can use that funding and then see the impact that you are creating. If the change is already going on very well, and our hope is to actually have this continuously done, like every year, to actually have these calls for project proposal. If that happens, and then your project is creating impact that is actually visible, that is actually seen, and your community is actually recommending you for more funding. So next year you can actually apply for another support in case we actually have this kind of support also like that next year. So thank you so much.
Before we
We'll go
also
for
end,
next step.
before the next step, just to also answer the question, we as young people who are from a displaced community, we definitely understand that there's such a big need, and this is one of the first step because we've not done this before. This is one step to really ensure that we're working on the challenges, that we're working with young people who are trying to solve the challenges in their community. We're doing a lot of advocacy with other people as well to see how this can be something continuous. But at the same time, we're also having this particular call and these mini workshops to really position refugee youth who are part of different groups to apply for even other fundings. For instance, if there's any other funding or a call for proposal that is going to be made within this year, you can still apply for that. And our point of advocacy is that when you're supporting refugee youth, you need to also think about it in different spectrum, not only the traditional way of providing funding, but also in different ways that is flexible, that allows them to also really lead the solution in a very dignified way. So this is the first step. And as Simon has said, we can't solve all the challenges at a go. We're starting, and I'm just happy that all of you have shared what you're doing. All of you will share the project proposal, and it doesn't mean that if your project doesn't get selected, it's not good enough. It just means we need to really, as the GRYN, as the Global Refugee Youth Network, as leaders, we just need to continue to advocate for more opportunities so that we can support all the project proposals that we receive. So let's keep on doing the advocacy. Let's keep on doing the great work. And as we do this, hopefully we'll get more opportunities that will support the projects that we're all leading. I'm also very conscious of time. As a next steps, I just want to share with you some of the things that we can do as you're filling in the call for proposal. In case you do need, you need more help on filling the form, you can use the email and send in your questions. We will be there to answer. We have Laura, our communication coordinator, who will be there to answer the questions you have. We have the links to the videos that the info session, as well as this particular session that you can also refer to. We can also, because if most of you have already included their emails in the chat, you will also share with you a PDF version of these slides, which you can use to look through. And in case you come across something that is not clear, you can write to us and we'll be there to support you. We also have a WhatsApp group, and in the WhatsApp group, we have all the GRYN leadership who would be able to answer your question. So this is some of the things that you can do as you respond to the call, as you work on the call for application, and as you share the incredible work you're doing. We hope to support you through the funding, as well as through capacity building sessions that will enhance the way you work and how you apply for even different fundings that will be announced during this year or even next year. Next slide, please. So thank you so much. We're grateful that you honored our invite and you were able to come to this session and hear us and share your perspective and talk about the work you've been doing. But since this is also our first mini workshop, we'd be keen to hear back. We'd be keen to hear your feedback on what did you like about this particular session? What do you think needs to be improved? And then at the same time, if you have any other suggestions, you can also share in the chat. We're keen to take in your feedback, as well as things that you've liked about the session and things that you feel we could improve on, so that as we conduct the next workshops, as we continue to do the advocacy, as we continue to just ensure that we're amplifying or scaling up the refugee youth work, we're doing it in a way that is best, and it's not based only on how we have interpreted things. So maybe we can take the next 1 minute to do that, to share our feedback, and then I'm going to hand it over to Simon, who will then wrap up and end the call after you've shared your suggestions or your comments. Simon, back to you. Thank you very much. And for the questions that have not been answered, please also feel free to send us the email, send us your question through the email, and we will also get back to you on that. We want to make sure that all the information is as clear as possible and you're able to apply for this funding without a lot of complication, and we make sure that everything is quite clear. I